de idiomas. Em atenção aos nossos colegas vindos do exterior, nós vamos tentar manter tanto quanto possível do programa em inglês, mas haverá atividades em português também. E, sobretudo, nós não queremos que ninguém fique inibido de intervir por questões de linguagem. Nós conversamos com o professor Azarello, o professor Bill Barton, com antecedência, e eles acharam que, concordam, que a prioridade aqui é a comunicação. Então, quem quiser comunicar, mesmo nas atividades em inglês, pode comunicar em português ou em espanhol. So I was telling them that this is going to be run on a multilingual platform, and now the very first activity will be chaired by Professor Bill Barton, who will tell us about the Klein Project and stuff. Bill.
Obrigado. Bom dia. It is wonderful to be back in Rio for a second time and to bring my wife here. And thank you very much indeed, Marcelo, for having us here again and making this possible. It's very nice to be part of Klein Project Brazil and to be thinking about how the Klein Project internationally works with Klein projects in each different country. I'm very grateful that our session, where I speak English, is in the morning when people can still concentrate sufficiently. So thank you in advance for listening to my English. It's my pleasure to chair this session. In this session, we have 5 members of the design team. There are 8 members altogether. 5 of us are here. And each of us will speak for a short time about a different aspect of the international project. And first, I will invite Fernando Azarello, who is the current president of ICMI, but a member of our design team, and he is going to give a short overview of the whole Klein project. Fernando.
Okay, so thank you, Bill. And good morning, everybody. I'm very happy to be here. Unfortunately, I can't speak Portuguese, so I can understand if you don't speak so fast, so I will try to participate. Yeah, okay. Okay, so I wish to join Bill to thank the IMPA, and particularly Marcelo Viana, for the kind invitation. Also, as president of ICMI, I'll thank you because we'll meet with the executive committee here next week. So we have a dance program in Rio this time. So I have to speak about, you see the title, and how it all began. So that's what I'm speaking of, about this Progetto Klein de Matematica. So the origins, as you can imagine, is in Felix Klein, and something which happened very important in 1908. In that year, it appeared a book, a very important book, at that time in 2 volumes, which is very well known, and it exists in translation in English and also in Spanish. Also in Portuguese. Oh, wonderful. So it's the elementary mathematics from an advanced standpoint, and the book challenged both teachers and mathematicians to consider the relationship between mathematics as a school subject and as a scientific discipline, which is a very important topic also today. But 1908 is important also for another reason, namely it dates the origin of IMPA. It was founded in 1908 in Rome at the International Congress of Mathematicians, and in 2008 we had the symposium on that occasion. This date is very important also for the Klein Project, because starting from 2007, and because of these things, the IMU and the IMPA Executive Committee jointly decided to launch this Klein Project, inspired, of course, by the work of Felix Klein, and to address secondary school teachers of mathematics all over the world. One of the main ideas is that mathematicians and math educators contribute to it working together. This is one of the main points. Not to have separate rooms where mathematicians work on their theorems and math educators work on their research. And it's important because teaching mathematics requires a lot of mathematics, of knowledge of mathematics, and also something from math educator's side. Its aim of this project is to help the teachers to make connections between the mathematics they teach or can be asked to teach or should teach and the field of mathematics, while taking into account the evolution of this field over the last century. And in fact, in 2008, the magic date, an international design team was appointed, and now we have this, I show you a photo, was increased a bit. You have the fellows there. Thomas Recio from Spain is not in that photo, which was taken, I think, in Berlin at the last workshop we had in September. And you see there are people from different parts of the world, from Australia, Canada, Germany, Brazil, you know Eurico there, Italy, France, New Zealand, and the United States, and Spain. The design team meets periodically, and we had meetings, you see them there, every year in different parts of the world, and now we are meeting here, we'll meet here in Rio, thanks to the hospitality of the IMPA. Originally, the Klein Project was conceived as producing a modern version of Klein's book and the CD. So, to say, to update, in a sense, the idea of Klein's, creating a new book, because we are more than 100 years have passed from that date. Then, we have increased our ideas, and within the team, we developed the idea of the Klein vignette, available on a blog, in addition to the book. The book is already there, but it's still there, not already. And it has also grown into linked community of actions, like those in your country, like this we are doing this. Doing now here, and we had a lot of conferences, workshops, activities in different countries, you see there, and we had mathematics teacher and mathematics education conferences, and here is a list, possibly not complete, of places where we meet. And of course, you see, there is this meeting here in April, and also next one will be in Tanzania in September. So a lot of places and a lot of people are involved in such things. And the motivation from Klein for this, then Hans Gehr will speak about this. I give only some small hint. And that's, this observation, namely modern developments have passed over the schools without the slightest effect on instruction. It was made by it. You find it in the book of Klein. Mathematical instruction and the onward march of mathematical investigation lost all touch with each other after the beginning of the 19th century. It was written in 1908, but it's even more valid now, for the school and for what is lacking in the school concerning mathematics. Hence, the 21st century Klein Project is about contemporary mathematics, its themes, problems, excitement, and its applications. Of course, it must also relate to the educational environment of the 21st century, which is very different from the environment in which Klein worked. And Klein's intent was as follows. My task will be to show you the mutual connections between problems in the various fields. I hope you draw from mathematics a living stimulus for your teaching. This book is designed solely as a mental spur, not as a detailed handbook. And that's an idea behind our projects too. In fact, the 21st century Klein Project has as its main focus the pleasure and inspiration of its readers within the mathematical field, so that they become more exciting teachers. And so the Klein Project seeks to satisfy the desire of secondary teachers for mathematical nourishment. The international Klein Project six possibly tries to reach all upper secondary teachers, not only a limited number of them, those who already are enthusiastic of mathematics, but also other teachers who are not so enthusiastic possibly. And both mathematicians and mathematics educators have important roles to play in the project. And the collaboration, IMPA is a commission of IMU, and the essential aspect of our project is the involvement of both sides of this coin, math educators and mathematicians. We must work together, inclusively, if we are really to make a difference. So, of course, the Klein Project is for the world, so it's neutral with respect to the specific school curricula. Klein materials are not classroom resources. They are materials for teachers. The teacher have to work on them in order to transform them, to transpose them for the classroom. We need to produce material, deliver workshops like this that are mathematically important, relates to contemporary mathematics and contemporary applications at a mathematical level suitable for secondary teacher, and the teachers will want to read or attend. We need to produce material that is mathematically important and relates to contemporary mathematics and contemporary applications. And for this, the responsibility is of mathematicians. They must point out which are these aspects of mathematics. But from the other side, the material must be suitable at a mathematical level, suitable for secondary teachers. And the teacher should want to read it. And this prime responsibility rests with mathematics educators. So this is the, so to say, the division of tasks between them, but jointly collaborating to the project. If we provide material for teachers, but they don't read it, then we all have failed, mathematicians and math educators. So what to do? So we are trying to do that, producing vignettes, short readable pieces on a single topic, and the book. The book is on the way, so we'll hope to have it in not too long a time. And you can find, as most of you know, possibly this address, all the vignette. Here is the list of the vignette we have already. And now we are trying to start to categorize them according to different categorization. And there is also in this last thing that was added later, we have started the idea of putting this site of the month. So we have put mathematics for the planet Earth and enrich. Oh, here it is. Sorry for the previous slides. And vignettes are typically less than 10 pages. on some topic in contemporary mathematics in the last century. And the main features of such vignette is that they want to pick them up, the teachers, and read them, want to keep reading them, want to read more about the topic, want to read another one, and that are the ideas that push out to write them in a certain way. So each vignette must capture teacher attention. The title is vital. The first image is important. The first paragraph must contain a hook to capture the attention of the teacher. And for here is you can read the starts, the hook, for example, how Google works, and you can read this. I skip it, but you can imagine or read it as you like. And so each vignette must keep teachers' attention. Our research tells us that the mathematical level is vital. Start from what is well known, move to significant mathematics, which is the point of the vignette, and containing something new. The idea is walking beside and not talking at, like a detached person. And here is an example which is loved by the teachers very much, from Heron triangles to elliptic curves. And each vignette ends with a moral. For example, that vignette about the Heron triangles, the last sentence, the last paragraph says that the story described in this article shows the remarkable unity of mathematics, starting as it does in high school and ending in research, and then gives some details about this, summarizing what it has been done, it has been written in the vignette. And so we try to give support for teachers who wish to read more about the argument, the topic of the vignette. So the idea is also to push teachers or readers to read more. And so we must use a suitable medium, not our own media, but the media used by the teachers. And try to make accessible these vignettes to all secondary teachers in the world. And there is the issue of language, which is from the bubble time, is a difficult issue to. So the idea is to produce and reproduce vignettes in many languages, maybe not in our language. And you have the list of the different languages where the vignette now exists. And so it's important because the idea is to create, so to say, a community of people who, knowing each one her or his own language, can work on them and communicate possibly. So we know that teachers are busy, have many calls on their attention, and how can we feed every teacher new vignette? So we try to do such sort of thing with the workshops, with the meetings we organize, and the Klein workshops are our main tool to do that. In fact, they, like this, are places where secondary mathematics teachers, mathematicians, mathematics educators come together to work on Klein Project materials. What is produced is important, but as with all workshops, what happened in the interaction is equally important. So the network possibly created by such actions. And we say that contemporary mathematics is a wonderful playground in which we can play together and discuss together. And how? So we invite you to strengthen your links with the Klein community, reading the vignettes, working with others to draft new vignettes, working with others to draft supplementary documents, to translate existing vignettes, by spreading the blog, encouraging others to keep going back to it, by helping with the teachers' trials, by thinking of ways to extend the project. And for this, I thank you for the attention.
Thank you, Ferdinando. And I would now like to pass over to Hans-Georg, Hans-Georg will talk a little about the background, the Klein background to the project.
Yes, thank you, Bill. Yes, thank you also from my side for the invitation to Rio. It's the first time that I stay here in Rio, the second time that I stay in Brazil. Last year I've been to Sao Paulo. And so this is my part to tell you a little bit about Felix Klein, a little bit an introduction to his life and also to the book or the books. Yeah? You see elementary mathematics from an advanced standpoint. Yes, this is Felix Klein, and he was born, you see here his date of birth, and this is what he noticed by himself when he was 70 years old. He noticed this. Sometimes you have to get quite old that you notice important things, yeah? That you have 3 prime numbers here, whatever this means. Yeah? And a few dates of his life, he studied in Bonn, so these old cities in Germany. And in Germany, it's very important to change university if you want to improve in your scientific career. So he has done his dissertation, and you see already he was born 1849, dissertation 68. Quite young. Yeah? And habilitation is another dissertation. It's a special thing in Germany. You have to do this to get a professor's job, and then he had the professor's chair in 3 universities here in Germany, and then he retired, and last day, 22nd of June 1925, he died. A few words about his principle, his main principles about mathematics. And in mathematics, one principle was the meaning of visualization. And he had at every city, at every university he has done a collection of geometrical models, like this one here. This is an example. It still exists in Göttingen, and you have hundreds of models like this. And at the moment in Göttingen, they try, of course, nowadays you have digital models too, so you have an equivalence on the computer. And there is a project in Göttingen now going on to bring these models, not only the digital one, also these old models, to teacher education at the university. This is going on to classifying all the models and to thinking how you can bring it to teacher education. This is another model. It's a minimal service like soap bubbles, and this is important to me because this is a sculpture at the University of Würzburg, where I come from, and this is the logo of the mathematics department, and exactly it's this model here. So I have a special relationship to Enneper's minimal service. So it's one of also of Klein's models. Also, he was a consultant during the foundation of the German Technical Museum in Munich. It's a big museum, and it still exists nowadays, and this shows that Klein has really, he wanted to bring the ideas to the public, not only inside the university, not only teacher education, but to bring these ideas to the whole public, and so he was a consultant. It's a huge technical museum here in Munich. The second principle is the meaning of mathematical thinking. And it's a quote of Felix Klein: geometry is not only a science about spatial objects, it is a way of thinking. This is why we do also geometry, because we want to learn how to think mathematically. So this was an important principle to Felix Klein. A third principle, the meaning of applications. And there is a third volume from this elementary mathematics from an advanced standpoint, and this third volume is precision and approximation mathematics. It's especially about application. It is not translated to English. At the moment it's only available in German. And he was in 1895, the only university member in the German Society for Engineers. This was one special thing because there was on the one side the university, on the other side the engineers. And Klein, he has filled, he has done a bridge between these two worlds. And always seeing, not only seeing the mathematics university, you have to look also at the engineers, how mathematics is here really done in the real world, how you can apply mathematics in the real world. It was also a very important principle to Felix Klein. And he was interested in new technologies. And this is the beginning of the 20th century. This is the calculating machine. This was a very new technology, 1908, 1920, and he brought this kind of new technology into teacher education. And this is a quote from his book here: above all, every teacher of mathematics should be familiar with this calculating machine. Yeah, you can, of course, see now it's the computer, of course. Yeah, so Klein would have, brought the computer for sure into mathematics education, and he would have been a supporter for the new technologies. Klein's principles in mathematics teaching. On the one side, the principles on mathematics, and now to mathematics teaching. And he had the ideal of a general education. This means all students should get a humanistic, philosophical, and scientific education. So not only thinking about mathematics, having a very broad education, humanistic, also philosophical ideas. It was very important to Klein, and I think it's the same we can do, or we should do nowadays. The second was the great importance of teacher education at the university. Of course, Klein was a mathematician, but he saw the importance for teacher education, and he has done summer schools for teachers. Already 1908, 1920, summer schools during the holidays. And he was convinced that it's necessary that teachers always have to do some professional development, that they have to be in contact with new developments in mathematics. And his interest in mathematics classroom education. He was not a teacher, but he was the initiator of a very big reform, 1905, and it was in Germany the starting point to bringing calculus to the high school. Calculus was not taught at the high school before 1905, and he was a supporter because he said that the functional thinking, working with functions, is so important. Every student has to get this experience, and calculus is very important to learn how to think functionally, to think in functions, to think with functions, to get to know how to work with functions also in a high school. And the great importance of internationality. 1908, we've just heard this, he was the first president of the ICME, and his aim also was comparing mathematics education internationally. Nowadays we talk about PISA and all these international studies. Klein was also a supporter, not only to think in one country, always compare your education in your own country with other countries. So it's also a very modern idea. And so this is, Felix Klein is very modern also nowadays. A few words to these books, Elementary Mathematics from an Advanced Standpoint. There are at the moment 3 volumes. The first is the idea was what just Ferdinando told us. Teachers have to discover recent developments in present scientific mathematics from an advanced standpoint by themselves. This was why he has done summer schools, that teachers should know something about the present mathematics. And this is the title, Elementary Mathematics. What does elementary mean? Elementary, the quote of Felix Klein, elementary are those parts of mathematics which an average talented boy, 1908, also a talented boy, is able to understand without having studied for a long time. So it's a quite open definition of elementary. Elementary mathematics, to Felix Klein, is relative to the knowledge of the learner. So it's not an absolute definition. But the next quote is, if he's talking about what advanced or maybe higher standpoint mean, I don't have in mind the beginner or freshman of a study. I expect that an advanced student already knows the main contents of mathematics disciplines. So he thought that these books, these are courses at the universities, have been courses at the universities for advanced students, mathematics students. So he wrote this book not for high school students, not for the beginners, for students who are already a little bit advanced also in their study. And this book, and this is what makes these books interesting to us nowadays, they have different levels of reflections. Every chapter in this book has an historic genetic level, a mathematics level, and a school level. So he always had in mind these different levels when he wrote his book, and he had some guidelines for every chapter in this book. It's the importance of visualization. Mathematical relationships, he wanted to say to show not only one field of mathematics, always seeing the relationships, the interrelationships between different fields in mathematics, geometry, algebra, calculus, stochastics, and of course he wanted to see always applications of the mathematical topics and mathematical way of thinking. We learn how to think mathematically if we do mathematics. So these are the guidelines, and only an overview what's in these volumes. If you don't know this, it's the first volume. It's about here arithmetic, algebra, calculus. And arithmetic is natural numbers, operations with integers, negative numbers, fractions. Algebra, real equations with real unknowns, fundamental theorem of algebra, and some geometrical objects. And calculus is logarithmic and exponential functions, function theory, geometric functions, Taylor theorem. So this is the content of this book, if you want to read it. The next one is geometry. Geometry is about geometric manifolds, geometric transformation, and there is a systematic discussion of geometry and its foundations. And I needn't to read this. It's only the contents of the second book. But maybe the third book you don't know because it's not translated into English. I think neither to Portuguese. The third volume, Precision and Approximation Mathematics. It's about functions with real variables, functions with one variable, approximation of empirically giving functions. You see the relationship to applications, regression analysis, and functions in two variables. Second part, geometry of plane curves, the concept of curve, piano curve, Jordan curve, practical geometry, geodetics. And so this is the content of the third point. And only to give you one example, it's from the first book. It's about complex numbers, and you see these different levels in this chapter. If he's talking about complex numbers, he first gives an historic genetic view, or the foundation, talking about Leibniz. The imaginary numbers are something between to be or not to be, so he's also some philosophical thinking about complex numbers. He's talking about Euler and Gauss. So he's going back to the history of complex numbers. The second is the mathematical level. Of course, it gives formal reason for the construction of complex numbers, and he explains how to do this geometric representation, for example, the multiplication as a rotation and dilatation. He explains this with different visualizations. Then, and now he goes ahead to a generalization. He's talking about quaternions. And now you see it's an advanced level of thinking. Yeah? These are beyond complex numbers. And he's talking about quaternions in the meaning in physics and the geometric interpretation of this. And again, the lecture is not for freshmen, but for those students who are confident with the most important mathematics fields. Yeah? And the last is, then he gives an outlook to complex numbers. In mathematics classrooms, the geometric meaning of complex numbers should be taught as extension of the real numbers. So you have these different levels in his chapters of this book, yeah? And that was my part. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Great. The third part of this first presentation, we wanted to offer an opportunity for you to ask questions of us about the Klein Project. So, Yuriko, may I invite you to come forward, please? So, I will try to answer your questions, but please feel free to ask your questions in Portuguese if you wish.
Então, a ideia é que a audiência, né, ou a plateia interaja fazendo perguntas sobre o projeto Klein e tudo. Pode fazer no português, eu traduzo, a gente interage, certo? Então, estou aqui para melhorar a comunicação.
It would help us if there were some questions. The idea of this session is not so much for you to understand us, but we want to understand where you are as well. So please ask some questions.
Como uma provocação, a maioria das pessoas que estão convidadas aqui nesse workshop são pessoas que já colaboraram com o Klein projeto Klein, certo? Vitor, Citara, eu, Humberto mais do que nunca, e tantas outras pessoas que já organizaram as oficinas para professores. Então, a palavra projeto Klein não é novidade. Então, agora que nós estamos na presença do Design Team, é a oportunidade de vocês também colocarem suas considerações e perguntas diante do que vocês viveram do projeto Klein. So, I'm telling you, provoking them to ask you questions about our Klein project, because most of them have already participated in some kind of Klein project ideas that Mario Jorge Carneiro and myself were doing last 4 years. Marcelo,
eu tenho uma pergunta que eu acho que seria... Eu sei uma parte da resposta, mas não sei tudo, e acho que seria interessante para contextualizar. É o seguinte, o que é que foi conseguido com o projeto Klein, quais foram os sucessos da atividade do Klein 100 anos atrás? O que é que mudou na sala de aula? What changed in classrooms across the world because of Klein's initiatives? What was achieved 100 years ago? The reason I'm asking is that Brazil was not at all a part in that process. In a sense, our system didn't exist at that time. We were not members of IMU and so on. So we were not affected by it directly, but I'm pretty sure we were affected indirectly.
So you want the historic view in the beginning of the 20th century.
What changed? What did Klein achieve?
Yeah. The first, it was this big reform in 1905, and there were the principles first to bring functions and the functional thinking, the way of functional thinking, into the classroom. This was the first one, and the second one was to do geometry and also to do space geometry, not only plane geometry. Yeah? And he had some other principles, but the first one, the functional thinking, influenced the curricula very much, because since then calculus came into the classrooms, into high schools, but it lasted 50 years. 50 years. There were many opponents against this, especially the mathematicians said it's impossible that high school students can understand the basics of calculus. That's a limit process, the derivative. This is not possible. I don't know, I can't say you nowadays whether it's true or not. If you ask students nowadays what is the derivative, you get some strange answers. But it came into the classroom, and since 1950, the curricula in Germany changed in the sense of Felix Klein. He was not so successful with space geometry, because it's still a plane geometry.
Você pode traduzir para o pessoal, hein?
Então, a resposta foi que Klein conseguiu essencialmente 2 avanços no currículo escolar. É um pouco irônico o que eu vou dizer. Um avanço foi a introdução do cálculo no ensino médio. O conceito de função e o cálculo que ele considerava fundamental para compreender o conceito de função, que era fundamental para ele, até para a matemática que ele fez, para a pesquisa dele. E outro aspecto em que ele gastou muita energia, foi um pouco menos bem sucedido, foi o ensino de geometria espacial na sala de aula. Eu digo que é um pouco irônico, porque vocês sabem qual é a realidade dos 2 tópicos na nossa atualidade.
I think that Klein's influence internationally was also a very strong political influence. That his role as the first president of ICMI, that was interesting because it initiated a mathematics education orientation amongst the community of mathematicians. And of course we are the descendants of that decision. And this was very strongly brought out, I think, at the conference where Hilbert presented his, how many problems? 23 problems. That was actually the mathematics education session of ICM. So it was a time where mathematicians suddenly realized that their audience was much greater than the community of mathematicians. And I think that is the heritage of Klein that we are trying to tap into with the Klein Project. And I would say, but then I'm biased, that the Klein Project and the reintroduction of Klein's sort of ideas, now, 100 years later, we are trying to initiate another political change, and this political change is the change of mathematicians and teachers and mathematics educators working closely together on joint projects. And so it's the political movement that we are all part of this long, long history and transition.
Então, eu gostaria de fazer um resumo do que foi falado, tanto por Hans-Georg como do Bill Barton, que foi perguntado qual foi o impacto das ideias do Felix Klein 100 anos atrás, o que foi feito na sala de aula. E então Hans-Georg levantou esses 2 pontos que eram os objetivos essenciais da ideia do Felix Klein, de colocar primeiro a mudança curricular nas escolas secundárias, de introduzir o ensino por meio de funções, porque o pensamento funcional era a base para modernizar a matemática. E também introduzir o ensino da geometria sob um outro ponto de vista, que não era somente aquela geometria plana, mas uma visão, uma maneira moderna de encarar a geometria e introduzir no currículo escolar. E ele falou que, mesmo na Alemanha, ele encontrou opositores muito grandes, de matemáticos que diziam que era impossível, que era um pensamento muito avançado. Demorou quase 50 anos para fazer uma reforma curricular para conseguir colocar funções, a teoria de funções, como currículo básico dentro do secundário. E ele disse também que menos sucesso teve a ideia de fazer ao ensino de geometria. E uma coisa muito importante que o professor Bill Barton falou é que a influência do impacto das ideias do Felix Klein na escola foi dado pela reforma política, é uma visão política, que mesmo tendo em vista que no passar do ICM de 1900, quando o David Hilbert colocou 23 problemas, já havia no ICM uma seção sobre ensino de matemática. Então, era uma preocupação dos matemáticos também atingir a parte de ensino da matemática e formação de professores. E agora, depois de 100 anos, nós estamos querendo criar mais um movimento, novamente, nesse espírito do projeto Klein, de fazer com que os matemáticos trabalhem mais próximos de professores de matemática e de educação matemática para fazer as novas reformas, para trazer os avanços da matemática para disponibilizar para os nossos professores. Então, em suma, a influência política, como o primeiro presidente do ICME, que Felix Klein teve, foi uma coisa que foi perene durante o século até agora. Sim. Não, pode perguntar em português, eu vou traduzir para a pessoa.
Eles conseguiram, então, após 50 anos, transformar o projeto através de uma atitude política em nível nacional nesses países, porque o que eu penso aqui no nosso país é que eu acho que o nosso movimento vai ter que ser lento, porque a gente não vai, de uma maneira geral, assim, conseguir implantar, por exemplo, isso numa escola sem teto do Nordeste. Sim. Então, o que eu fico pensando é como que ele se conseguiu atingir todas as escolas.
Olha, antes de passar para eles, eu gostaria de dizer para você que o Felix Klein, ele não começou um projeto. Ele publicou os livros e a posição dele, a influência que ele teve, o impacto tanto na matemática como na educação matemática, por causa da postura dele, por causa das ideias dele, é que a gente chama do projeto Klein agora. Ele não começou como um projeto Klein. Ele tinha suas ideias, entende? Então, você não pode perguntar qual foi o impacto do projeto dele, que ele não atuou como sendo um projeto. She was asking, okay?
If you've replied, that's okay. Unless you want me to reply. If you have replied, that's
no,
fine.
Yes, I have replied already.
I don't need to.
So maybe all of you talk about the impact of
but
these ideas.
I understand the question is a local question.
Yes.
But I think it's important to realize that the question could have been asked in my country. It could have been asked in Italy. It's the same question, and we are all facing that question. And that is why organizations like ICMI and a project like the Klein Project that must remain international is such a useful project, because we are all struggling with the same problems. None of us have the answers, but together we might move forward. And
acho que você entendeu a resposta, porque essas perguntas que você tem, todos nós temos. Por isso a importância de uma organização como o ICMI, que olha as iniciativas e os esforços internacionais de cada país para a gente contribuir e colaborar e dar o apoio um ao outro, né? Então, um encontro como esse é muito importante. Mas são questões que continuam também sem resposta em cada um dos nossos países. Certo?
However, if you want my personal answer to the question, it is that the solutions must come from the ground upwards. So it must be individuals like yourselves, like me, like Marcelo, who get together with teachers and mathematicians together, and even pairs of people and then small groups of people in one area, and reaching agreement at that level, which in my experience is not so difficult. I know there are huge divisions as soon as we step on the public stage. The moment we go in the media, or the moment we speak to a large audience, there will be divisions. But as soon as we sit in the same room, preferably a coffee bar, agreement is very quickly reached. And it seems to me we can use that personal understanding in order to grow kinds of agreements. So that would be my personal answer to which is not a complete answer.
Necessita tradução? Ou todos entenderam o que ele falou? Quem está precisando de uma tradução? One more question? Yeah. Salvador.
Thank you. Eu vou falar em português. Eu gostaria de saber o impacto do projeto Klein atual. Nós fizemos várias oficinas com professores aqui no Brasil e tiveram bastante sucesso, do ponto de vista que os professores chegavam, muitos iam ler o artigo pela primeira vez, tinham dificuldade, mas após o dia todo eles acabavam saindo satisfeitos. Mas criamos um blog. Nesse blog, eu não sei como é que está o acesso dos professores. Eu acho que ainda está muito tímido. Se a gente quer atingir os professores do ensino fundamental e médio, ainda está muito tímido. Eu gostaria de saber, nos outros países, como é que está o projeto Klein? Como é que eles estão, os professores de ensino básico, estão acessando esse blog e dando assim um retorno?
I translate the question. Because I think that everybody here can answer this from design team. What Salvador is saying that he's one of close collaborators of a Klein Project in Brazil. He and Eleni Bisonin, the people from the Brazilian Mathematical Society, Applied Mathematical Society, they are very supportive of a Klein Project, and I'm very grateful. And they are saying that they worked hard on the workshop with teachers, and many success, harder in the beginning, and but they say that after this very local success in the many workshops, the access to blog and interactions in the blog are still very weak. They want to see the more participative. So they want to know what happens in the other countries. How is the access of people from secondary school teachers are doing with the blog, the access? So, please.
Again, first of all, thank you for the support and the work that I know you have put in. The problem that you illuminate is also a common problem. And I think part of it is a problem that we have not solved organizationally within the Klein Project. We had, when it began, we had very grand ideas, and the practical realization of those ideas proved more difficult than we ever imagined. Some of these problems have to do with the fact that the Klein Project is entirely a voluntary issue. So there is no funding. This is why the Brazilian project is so wonderful, because there is funding for the Brazilian project for the many workshops you hold. The Central Klein Project is supported by ICMA and IMU for some meetings, but not really. And for ongoing generation of the blog and development of the blog, we do it when we have time, which, like you, no one has time. And so there is considerable frustration, not just in Brazil, but I've heard it in Germany, I've heard it in America, I've heard it in several countries, that the grand vision of the Klein Project has not appeared on the blog. Yet, and I wish to say something else, however, is that the Klein Project has grown in ways that we never expected. And so the Klein Project is in fact much greater than the blog. It is true that neither the blog nor the book have been realized to the extent that we wished. However, there are some interesting things that have happened. That the blog, even given its relatively small size, still has over 100 hits a day. So somewhere in the world, there are 100 teachers every day going to the blog. And that happens even if we do nothing for several weeks. There are still people, new people coming to the blog every day. There are more people this month than there have ever been before. It's a continual growth. So in that sense, the spread of the Klein Project is successful. It continues to increase. The second area in which the Klein Project has been unexpectedly successful is what we have here. In Brazil, thanks to people who are in this room, the Klein Project has had many manifestations locally and a lot of discussions between teachers and mathematicians. So it has achieved its aim in a very strong way. This is the same in Sweden. In Sweden, there is a big Klein Project, a national Klein Project that has an annual meeting in the Mittag Institute. What's it? In the Mathematics Institute there. That this has also happened in several developing countries. The Nepalese Mathematics Society have taken the idea of the Klein Project and made it their own, and have meetings and generate national meetings that, or local actually, in Kathmandu. The same in Cambodia. And they generate these things without us knowing about it. So the Klein Project has an existence that is way beyond the international design team. That is a very strong and successful existence. So yes, we still have problems with the blog. We are in the middle of trying to solve them. We hope to move forward while we are here.
Alguma pergunta? Precisa de tradução? Você precisa de tradução? Então, ele está dizendo que quando começou o Klein Project, eles tinham uma ideia inicial muito grandiosa e não tinha ideia das dificuldades práticas de atingir todos os professores, tudo. Não é? Então, tomou muitas frentes, cada país tentando fazer da sua maneira e concentrando, por exemplo, no blog, na produção de vinhetes e tudo. E, realmente, os comentários, as interações nos blogs podem não ser aquele ideal, mas começaram a aparecer sucessos que não eram esperados antes. Por exemplo, mesmo não fazendo nada, com o menor número de vinhetes como a gente desejava, diariamente centenas de professores atingem. Tem o registro de que alguém no mundo inteiro está abrindo o Klein Project. E o Klein Project está sendo adotado, está atingindo países antes nunca nem pensados. O professor Barton citou Nepal, por exemplo. Né? Agora, em Tanzânia, o professor Ferdinando vai levar, agora em setembro. Em Camboja, também. Então, tem países em que a ideia do Felix Klein de fazer o projeto Klein, de fazer a matemática, junto com os professores, está germinando, está atingindo uma proporção que também está fora do alcance do design team. Então, são os sucessos do nosso projeto.
Your questions are more important than what we are going to say, so let's keep with questions.
Pode falar,
habla
em espanhol, habla en español para que todos comprendan.
Sí, yo soy Salomé Martínez de Chile y he trabajado, soy matemática, he trabajado en educación matemática a un nivel un poco distinto. A mí una cosa que me preocupa un poco, o no sé si me preocupa, a mí me parece que esto es una iniciativa muy interesante, pero a mí me parece, al menos en Chile, uno de los problemas que tienen la formación de profesores y los aportes de los matemáticos a la formación de profesores es que se deja fuera la matemática de la escuela, la matemática que enseñan los profesores, ¿ya? Entonces, nosotros cuando formamos profesores se les enseña cálculo, álgebra lineal, ecuaciones diferenciales. Se le da una formación como un licenciado en matemáticas. Pero nadie se hace cargo de la matemática de enseñanza media, que es muy, muy interesante y que tiene muchas preguntas interesantes. Y a mí me parece que, al menos en Chile, ese es un aspecto donde se produce mayor impacto. Porque la matemática del colegio, que tiene mucho que ver con la enseñanza de la matemática, porque por supuesto los profesores lo que uno quiere es que los jóvenes aprendan y entiendan y razonen y piensen y modelen, ¿ah? También es un asunto de los matemáticos, no es un asunto de los educadores matemáticos. Entonces, a mí me parece que, al menos me atrevo a decir, no solo en Chile, me atrevo a decir que en muchos países latinoamericanos, ¿ah? Donde la matemática escolar está en tierra de nadie, porque muchas veces la gente que enseña matemática, educadores matemáticos, no manejan la matemática. ¿Por qué no han hecho matemática? ¿Ah? Porque PISA habla de modelar, PISA habla de razonar, PISA habla de pensamiento, de comunicación, y eso es algo que sabemos hacer o que es natural para nosotros. Entonces, a mí me parece que si bien ver la matemática, ese tránsito entre la matemática elemental y la matemática avanzada es muy interesante, también me parece que debería incluir preguntas de matemática elemental. ¿Ah? Porque creo que eso es, tal vez es lo que más buscan los profesores. ¿Ah? Y creo que tal vez tiene mucho impacto y hay muchas preguntas lindas que no tienen que ver con teoremas más avanzados, con resultados más avanzados, que tienen que ver con preguntas que revelan la profundidad de la matemática elemental. Yo puedo traducir, más o menos. ¿No? ¿Está bien?
And you, I think that Michelle has something to talk.
La pregunta que plantea es una muy buena pregunta y hemos discutido mucho acerca de esta pregunta dentro del grupo. Y es claro que, por ejemplo, cuando pensando no en las viñetas, pero también en el libro, en este libro se deben tener capítulos sobre números, las cosas elementales y esenciales y tratar de ver cómo presentarlas actualmente de este punto de matemática avanzada para los profesores. Es claro que estas cosas bastante elementales, pero de un punto de vista más avanzado, se ven menos en las viñetas, pero se pueden ver también en una viñeta como la primera viñeta que salió sobre los dos triángulos y que ha tenido un impacto bastante grande. Por ejemplo, en Francia todas las viñetas están en francés, han sido traducidas al francés y esta viñeta fue publicada por la revista de los profesores de matemática porque han decidido publicar regularmente viñetas. Y lo que pasó es que después de esta viñeta tenemos profesores que trataron de hacer las cosas en sus clases y hemos tenido publicaciones de profesores que habían trabajado con esta viñeta, estas cosas que son bastante la parte más elemental de la viñeta en sus clases con alumnos de básico. Y me parece que esto es muy importante porque es claro, por ejemplo, he visto lo mismo con una viñeta sobre la recurrencia e inducción, que fue publicado por la revista de los profesores de Mat. Pero la viñeta por sí mismo no da una idea de cómo utilizar esto en la clase. Y lo que es interesante en ese trabajo junto con los profesores es que después profesores trabajando en estas revistas trataron de producir situaciones de clases ilustrando las ideas de la viñeta y han publicado artículos en francés para los profesores poniendo en marcha las ideas fundamentales de las viñetas, pero es claro que las ideas más básicas de la viñeta, pero con actividades para la clase. Y me parece que es muy importante complementar este trabajo con realizaciones para las clases, porque si no lo hacemos, no lo hacemos en colaboración con profesores, esto no se va a hacer miraculosamente porque hemos escrito algo y no va a tener más impacto el proyecto Klein que, por ejemplo, lo que tenemos, porque en mi país tenemos muchas cosas que son de vulgarización, de popularización de matemática y sitios web muy bien hechos, pero el trabajo con los profesores para mí en el idioma de los profesores hace la diferencia clara entre este proyecto y los demás proyectos que existen en muchas partes.
Thank you.
Maybe Hans-Georg can add something, the impact of the vignettes being worked by German teachers.
I think
No?
we might move on.
Move on?
Yeah, because we need to finish it up fast to move on.
Okay. Okay, so, well, it's okay.
Yeah.
We have 3 days to talk about it.
Yeah. We are, of course, further interested in your questions and hope that you will ask us questions over the next few days. I'd now like to invite Michelle Artigue to speak a little bit about the idea of the book and some of the affordances, some of the difficulties and some of the pleasures we have had in trying to write the book. Michelle.
Vou falar portunhol. É prazer para mim estar aqui e poder compartilhar as ideias e os projetos com vocês. A parte do livro não é a parte mais avançada do projeto. E nesses anos he sido implicada en trabalho en capítulo particular do livro, o capítulo sobre lógica. E quero compartilhar com vocês as dificuldades, as eleições, a forma de trabalho e para discutir e ter suas visões deste trabalho. A visão inicial do livro era não fazer curso de matemática elementar de ponto de vista avançada, pero hacer algo que se puede leer como una historia, que sea una fuente de inspiración para los profesores, mostrando las principales ideas y ilustrando estas ideas con ejemplos inspiradores para los profesores. Y era la idea de hacer un libro de menos de 300 páginas para todo este edificio matemático, que es realmente un desafío. Y pensamos también tener capítulos como en los temas que ya eran en los libros de Felix Klein. números, álgebra, análisis elemental, pero también otros capítulos reflejando la evolución de las matemáticas desde el tiempo de Félix Klein, incluso en la enseñanza. Es decir, por ejemplo, tener más sobre probabilidades y estadísticas, que tienen un impacto más importante en matemática y también en la enseñanza de las matemáticas, tener cosas sobre matemáticas discretas y sobre matemáticas computacionales. Y también tener otro tipo de capítulos más transversales, para también mostrar bien las ideas de Félix Klein. Y Félix Klein hablaba, George lo recordó, ideas sobre las conexiones. Las matemáticas son una ciencia conectada en sí misma y conectada con un exterior. Y tener capítulos focalizando sobre las conexiones internas, conexiones externas. Mostrando también que la manera de hacer matemática no es una manera única, es una manera muy diversa. Y dando la palabra a matemáticos para que expliquen cómo hacen matemáticas diariamente. Y mostrando la diversidad de estas prácticas matemáticas. Todo eso en un solo libro. ¿Entienden? ¿No? Sí. Y como lo dije inicialmente, empecé a trabajar con colegas sobre un capítulo de lógica. Y pensando que había cosas que decir acerca de lógica para profesores. Y pensando también que este trabajo debía ser un trabajo colaborativo entre matemáticos educadores y profesores. Y en mi universidad, en París, tenemos un equipo de lógica, que es un equipo bastante famoso en el tema de lógica. Y algunos miembros de este equipo decidieron tomar en carga este trabajo con nosotros. Pero también tenemos una institución que es el IREM, Instituto de Investigación en Educación Matemática, donde matemáticos y profesores de secundaria y didactas trabajan juntos en grupos de trabajo para preparar sesiones de formaciones para los profesores y para desarrollar recursos para los profesores. Por eso, para nosotros era una cosa natural preparar este capítulo dentro de esta conexión entre matemáticos y profesores de secundaria que existía en el IREM. Y por eso ven que hay dos pilares para este capítulo. El primero es el equipo de investigación en lógica de la universidad. El segundo es el grupo de lógica del IREM. Un grupo que se ha creado hace 3 años porque en el currículo secundario en Francia se ha reintroducido una enseñanza de lógica en enseñanza media. Y también tenemos otros para testar el capítulo y lo que escribimos, que son los profesores que participan en nuestras actividades de formación continua. Y también tenemos una red nacional y hay una comisión para enseñanza media en los IREM, y la gente que hace parte de esta red es también para nosotros, son interlocutores privilegiados para experimentar lo que tratamos de escribir sobre lógica. Ahora, nuestra visión global, primero el trabajo fue tratar de ver qué quisiéramos decir acerca de la lógica, cómo quisiéramos presentar este dominio de las matemáticas, que es la lógica que se ha desarrollado desde el tiempo de Félix Klein. Porque en el libro de Félix Klein no hay un capítulo dedicado a lógica particularmente. Y queríamos hacer claro la idea que la lógica es un dominio. Lógica siempre ha estado algo fundamental en matemática, pero hasta el siglo XX ha sido algo más de metamatemático, como interrogaciones sobre la naturaleza del razonamiento matemático y también con cosas filosóficas, interrogaciones filosóficas sobre la matemática. Y queríamos mostrar que en el capítulo que en el último siglo se ha vuelto casi, no ha perdido su dimensión metamatemática, pero se ha vuelto también como un dominio matemático ordinario, que tiene conexiones con otros dominios matemáticos, que sirve a otros dominios matemáticos y que tiene también conexiones importantes con otros dominios, en particular con las ciencias computacionales y la informática. Segundo, la idea era de, repasando la historia brevemente, la historia de este campo en el siglo XX, mostrar que cuando se desarrolló la lógica matemática como un campo particular, se desarrolló para establecer fundaciones rigurosas a las matemáticas y mostrando lo que sucedió en esto. Y esto se puede hacer bastante sencillamente como una narración de una historia, hablando de las controversias, de los paradojas y de toda esta historia y hasta el punto actual. Y discutiendo con los profesores y los que trabajan sobre la enseñanza de la lógica hoy, en la enseñanza secundaria en particular, les pareció que teníamos que tener dos pilares en el capítulo muy importantes, que van hasta, cuando se piensa en la historia, se encuentran ya estos dos pilares en los trabajos, en los sueños de Leibniz, que quisiera hacer, crear una lengua característica universalis para expresar sin ambigüedad todas las matemáticas. Todo con el discurso matemática es la parte del lenguaje de la lógica. Y también crear un cálculus como decía, raciocinador, que fuese una matematización del raciocinio. Y eso lo quería hacer. Es decir, que se ven estos dos pilares que nos parecen muy importantes escribiendo para profesores. El hecho que, la lógica sirve para clarificar preguntas acerca de lo que es el discurso matemático, el lenguaje matemático, y también tiene una fuerte importancia para hacer claro lo que es el razonamiento, el raciocinio matemático. Y que esos son dos pilares que se van a encontrar a lo largo del capítulo como un hilo director. Pero cuando se piensa a la lógica matemática como dominio hoy, se ve que hay subdominios y se debe cruzar este hilo con la existencia de estos subdominios que son los subdominios del campo. Y estos subdominios son la teoría de modelos, los principales subdominios, la teoría de modelos, la teoría de los conjuntos, la teoría de la demostración y también la teoría de la calculabilidad, dicen, sí, de calculabilidad. ¿sí? Casi acabado. Y es decir que vamos a mostrar cómo estos 4 dominios desarrollándose dan ideas para entender al mismo tiempo mejor el lenguaje matemático y mejor el razonamiento matemático para un profesor. Hay también nuevos temas, no voy a entrar en todos los detalles, pero discutiendo con los investigadores en lógica, inicialmente querían hablar de todo, de todas las tendencias actuales, los desarrollos actuales de la lógica matemática, y perder algo de estos desarrollos actuales les parecían como morir. Es decir, que querían hablar de lógica infinitas, de lógicas, no sé cómo decir, diferentes tipos de lógicas, de subtemas que han tomado su autonomía. Por ejemplo, al inicio les parecía que no hablar del andacálculus no se podía hacer, pero tratar de hablar del andacálculus de un modo muy elementar no es una tarea evidente. Y también querían mostrar, pero eso lo van a hacer claramente, porque es muy importante, la influencia entre el desarrollo de la lógica y el desarrollo de las ciencias informáticas. Bueno, eso es, yo quería llegar con el capítulo, una primera versión del capítulo que discutida con los profesores y mostrada, pero finalmente no fue posible venir aquí con este capítulo entero, esta primera versión, pero es claro que a este momento tenemos una introducción, un escenario global que ha sido discutida con los profesores, con los de lógica, todos los que trabajan sobre la enseñanza de la lógica, y que al menos para los profesores franceses y los que forman estos profesores parece algo válido, pero no hemos tenido ninguna confrontación internacional a este momento, y la visión puede cambiar, de lo que es accesible, útil, puede cambiar pasando de un país a otro. Y es siempre un desafío para los autores, porque cuando se compara el campo de lógica con otros campos, por ejemplo, los números, álgebra, análisis, es mucho más difícil saber lo que se puede suponer como conocimiento de parte de los profesores, porque no se enseña la lógica. Es decir, que este campo de la lógica matemática es un campo que no es muy compartido en la cultura de los profesores. Para los autores franceses, adoptar este estilo de narración para contar matemáticas no es, para los investigadores, no es su estilo familiar. Es decir, que cada parte del capítulo se debe escribir 5, 6 veces para encontrar un estilo que por lo menos en Francia responde a esta idea de estilo narrativo. Y hacen esfuerzos, pero les cuesta mucho hacerlo. Y también nos han impuesto un capítulo menos de 30 páginas, y por eso deben hacer selecciones drásticas, y cada vez piensan morir un poquito. Haciendo estas selecciones es muy difícil, pero adelantamos, poco a poco adelantamos, y al mismo tiempo estamos desarrollando viñetas. 2 hacen parte del blog que hemos desarrollado con Ferdinando, la secuencia de Bootstein sobre recurrencia y inducción, y hay 2 que son casi listas, y yo pensaba poder discutir con vosotros, estos días, sobre por lo menos estas dos nuevas viñetas. Una que trata de los infinitesimales y son rehabilitados este discurso con infinitesimales o no. Y otra que es ligada al hecho de también de demostración automática y ligada a la eliminación de cuantificadores iniciado por Tarski, un famoso artículo de Tarski en los años 40, y que tiene, pero la estrategia de Tarski no se podía implementar con los medios, los recursos computacionales de la época, y siempre es un trabajo que liga lógica y ciencias computacionales para tratar de sacar provecho de este teorema fundamental de eliminación de cuantificadores para el lenguaje de los cuerpos reales y pasar a formas que pueden funcionar, y se muestra en la viñeta cómo se hace. Bueno, muchas gracias. Sí, había, pero eu acho que debemos ahora discutir de nuevo dentro do grupo sobre este plano geral, y también debemos encontrar para los diferentes capítulos grupos que aceptan tomar en cuenta y que aceptan desarrollar los capítulos juntos con profesores y educadores, para que por fin, cuando uno ha escrito 30 páginas, no se descubre que estas páginas no pueden ser leídas, no pueden ser útiles para profesores. Y me parece que he visto durante estos años trabajando con los investigadores en lógica, y es más fácil para mí porque mi tema de investigación primeramente era lógica y mi tesis es en lógica, pero he olvidado casi todo de lógica, y cuando leo los artículos me toma mucho tiempo recuperar todo eso, pero realmente es algo necesario, y hacer el test con los profesores, tener todos estos niveles, para mí es absolutamente necesario, pero debemos adelantar en esta idea ahora y no solo concentrarnos en las viñetas.
It is my job to make sure we finish by 11:30, so I have failed already. I am going to take about 3 minutes to finish up and just talk a little bit about the relationship between the local or national Klein Project in Brazil in particular and the international project as a whole. I hope that we have communicated to you that we regard the Klein Project as a whole community. A community has benefits, an international community has benefits, but it also has responsibilities for each member to contribute, to share concerns across the community, not just nationally but internationally, to try to find ways to communicate. There are many ways, not just through the Klein Project, to continue to communicate, to give feedback about how the Klein Project internationally can better help what is happening in Brazil, and also to think ahead as to what might happen not only in our own futures, but in the future of the teachers that are following us and mathematicians. Of course, the easy way to contribute to the Klein Project is to be part of the building of the resources, the vignettes, or we had always hoped there would be supplementary background material to go with each vignette. This has not materialized, and I don't quite understand why. I suspect that much of this material would best be written by teachers, and I suspect most teachers are far, far too busy. I think that's the answer, but I'm not sure. But I invite you to think about that. I know people are beginning to work on producing pedagogical resources. This is not the main aim of the project, but some people, there's no reason why they can't be produced and be available. I would also like to see further documents on mathematical links between different vignettes, and possibly documents that could be prepared for teachers for whom a vignette is beyond where their current mathematical understanding is, and for teachers who want more and more in-depth mathematics. So those are other resources that could be produced. But there are other ways to contribute. The final slide. We are just moving into a new phase of the Klein Project and beginning to think about exhibits that we could use at a fair, or that students and teachers could touch and play with, like in some of the mathematical museums. We're beginning to produce these. I invite you to make it a collective task of this meeting to hand me at the end of the meeting a hairy ball. We have tried and tried to make a hairy ball. What I mean is, we would like to have a ball about this size that you can comb in any direction. It is impossible. We have tried many kinds of material. We just cannot make a hairy ball. So I present this to you as a challenge, and it will then, if you succeed in this challenge, it will be known as the Rio Hairy Ball. The other thing that I invite any one of you in this room is that, in fact, of the 19, however many vignettes that are there, only 5 are available in Portuguese. So there are several vignettes that need translation into Portuguese. Any one of you could do that. So please, would you consider spending some time doing it here? While we're here, the moment you give us a translation in Portuguese, we will put it on the blog. So please, I invite you to participate in any way you can, and I now invite you to participate in morning tea, lunch. Lunch. Thank you very much indeed.
Nós vamos reorganizar um pouco o horário devido ao atraso inicial. Vamos parar aqui para o almoço e recomeçamos à tarde às 1h30.